This is going to be a video talking about some of the music from Scarface and I guess how it works harmonically. There's some really nice motion in it that has a lot of, it's a good example for some fundamental concepts and it sounds really cool. It shows how a lot of the harmonies coming from very old principles that have existed for a long time, but it still sounds really, really fresh and sounds really cool. So I'll put a link to the one I was listening to. It's kind of the ending music, the chords on the synthesizer, and this is just my impression from listening to it. I don't know if there's any official way you're supposed to do it, but this is just my impression from listening to it and what I've kind of made of it. But so I'll talk about how it's kind of structured and I guess how it works, and maybe how I could put it on the guitar. There's a few options, but so this one, like I say, the link's in the description, but it's in the key of G minor. Starts off in the key of G minor. Obviously it's our root note G, and when I was listening to it and trying to, put it on the guitar, to me the most important thing if I'm trying to sort of just get the same feeling is probably, whenever there's a set of chords, seems to me what stands out to me the most is the lowest note and the highest note. The highest note is usually heard as what we hear as the melody, which to me here in the first chord is. It definitely sounds like a solid kind of G minor, so this is a good option to start with. And this, when we hear this as the first chord, this is kind of telling us that this is home, this is the tonic. This is reinforced when we go to the next chord. We can hear the bass motion. Goes to chord 5 of G minor. And this definitely has there's a suspended sound. What do we mean by that? So if we were to play, let's say, chord 1 minor, G minor, to chord 5, dominant 7, in this key, that would be D7, so G minor to D7 would sound like this. And this hopefully is a familiar sound. When we hear this, there's not, we're very sure that our home is here. We feel like we're back home here. So this, what do we mean by suspension? This is just when a note from the previous chord, in this case this note, the G, is carried over into the next chord. So instead of hearing this, we're actually hearing this. And then it drops later. And this is a very common example of a suspension where the note that's held over from the previous chord is actually the 4th in the new chord, which will fall to the 3rd. This is why we're probably, if you've been playing music for a bit, maybe you've heard sus4, this term get thrown around. That's because this is the interval is a 4th. 2, 3, 4, octave up. So that's our first sound, and essentially what this is doing it's essentially telling us that we're in home is G minor. We feel like here is the key of G minor. Sound wise, this is just a fundamental example, but if you have this, say you're playing in G minor and you're hearing these kind of sounds, and then the next common note that's not in that diatonic framework would be the raised 7. And this is the 3rd of the chord 5, and it's very common to hear that. I'm sure we've all heard this before, but we're framework of G minor. We've just raised the 7 of G minor because we made chord 5 the dominant 7 rather than minor. Anyway, that's a lot of time spent on just the first 2 chords, so we'll carry on. This is, when you hear this next chord, hopefully that you can feel that it has a little bit of a surprise element to it. So I'll play through. Hopefully that feels a little bit surprising. That's because if we imagine we're in the key of G minor and you're just thinking we're just going to play only the notes in the key of G minor, this chord is never going to show up if you were sticking exclusively to those notes, because it has this note, which in our usual G minor diatonic framework, this note is not in there. That's why when we hear this, hopefully it jumps out a little bit to you. It's less jarring when it's not the highest note of the chord. When it's in the middle, it would sound more jarring if I play it like this. That standout note is a bit more prominent now. So what's happened here? If you want to explain this, I think the way I'm hearing it and the way it probably functions if you're trying to explain it in a logical way, if you're playing in a minor key, let's say in this case G minor, and for whatever reason a minor chord, a tone down from the tonic comes up, so it's like, you know, the minor 7 of the key, which is 1 tone down from tonic, with a minor chord on it. It doesn't fit the diatonic framework, so what's happening here? This is usually, in a lot of pop music or jazz music, it's kind of heard as, actually what it's suggesting is that the whole, I'll explain why in a minute, the whole home, if you like, our centre has moved up a 4th. And why is that? If we imagine for a moment that we're not playing in G minor, and let's say we'll call it B flat major. These two are obviously very related. They're relative major and minor. That is to say, the key of B flat major has all the same notes as the key of G minor. So we can play B flat here if we want, or we can play just regular B flat chords. When we hear this minor chord in a pop context or jazz, this is something that happens quite often, where it's used as an approach to the chord 4. You know, we've all heard this before. Two very related chords, but what we're doing now is saying, instead of this being our home and things being built around that, we're going to borrow something from this home. So we'll listen to the sound. Hopefully that's a sort of familiar sound. It's in plenty of songs. Essentially what you're doing is you're treating the chord that's a 4th above, that's this, 1, 2, 3, 4, so we've got a 4th above, you're treating that as the new home, and this is like the 2 of that. If you've ever heard of, you know, 2, 5, 1 or whatever, then this is going to go 2, 5, 1 in the new home. So you're just borrowing from a very related key. We know things 4ths away are very related. There's only 1 note difference. For example, to change from upper fourth, let's say you're in the key of C. If you were to do this in the key of C, there's only one note difference in the key of C and the key of F, which is the key of fourth above. And as you've shifted this note down one fret, you've just flattened one note. And apart from that, so they are very related, and that's why you can kind of get away with it. Anyway, back to the tune. So that's why we consider it, you can think of the tonal center, the whole thing moving up a fourth. That is viewing it from the perspective of the relative major, but the principle is just the same, because when I hear this, especially going to the, well, I'll play the next chord and then carry on. That's how it might go in an alternate universe where we have that really strongly tells us that this is a home. We've gone, and this C minor is 1/4 above G minor. We've gone upper fourth. So our whole tonal center feels as if it's shifted there. We're not in actuality going to play the C minor. We're just going to think of this as home from now on. This is where I think most of the rest of the chords are generated from. So now instead of G minor being our center, we're thinking we've shifted one note, which would be hearing this. In G minor we have this note. In C minor it's been changed to this. So this is where we're going to view the rest of the chords from. So what have we got then for the rest of it? So we've got 1 minor in G minor to 5 suspended, 5 dominant, still in G minor. Then I would call this chord 4 of C minor. It's a minor chord. Chord 5 of C minor. It's got that raised 7 of C minor, just how we had the raised 7 of G minor when the 5 chord was made major or dominant here. The sound is very much the same. Leads back to home. But instead of doing that, instead of going this, we're going to go. Now this is where it gets really juicy. What is this? It's a very kind of characterful sound that you may have heard it in a few things. It's not that common in where the sound is quite characteristic of sort of Baroque music, like J.S. Bach and those kind of fellows. It's the sound of a dominant 7th chord with the flat 7 as the lowest note rather than the root. So really what this chord is, and I'll play the notes, I'll just play the notes really slow, so if you want to copy. Basically a B flat chord, if you're familiar with this shape, and then pretend you lost this one and you're there now. Whenever you see this, very often this shape, very gnarly sound, but when you hear it, most of the time in context, it's either the flat 7 and the 3rd of a dominant 7 chord, or the other way around, because obviously it's a symmetrical interval. So the only interval that's the same when you flip it upside down. So, and this sound, hopefully you can hear that it wants to pull somewhere. So really what this chord is, it's, well, we know it's a B flat major type chord, and it's a B flat dominant 7 because it's got the flat 7 in the bass. And the nature of dominant 7 chords is they tend to feel as if they're pulling somewhere, they're heading somewhere else. They're more about where they're going to than where they're at. So we can say, well, hopefully we can hear that this chord, a natural progression for this might be to go here. We'll play that again. Hopefully this feels like a natural resolution to your ear. It's a very fundamental change. It's basically an inversion of, if we say, it's very much like going B flat to E flat, 5 to 1 of here. Now remember, E flat major is the relative major of C minor, so nothing's changed here notes wise as far as the family. We can just choose to view it from any perspective we want, but it's really the same bunch of notes, the same family. If we wanted, so to resolve, it's resolved to an E flat, but it has the 3rd in the bass. The reason that is natural here is because the flat 7 of chord 5, in this case, B flat, is right next to the 3rd of our E flat major chord. So it just resolves gracefully. Now this chord, it's pretty much the same sound. On the guitar I really like this sound for a first inversion major triad. It just seems to sound very resonant on my guitar and my amp. I don't know, it seems to sound, I prefer this, even though it's got one less extra note, because over here I'm not playing this note, but the gist of it is the same. The notes fall in the same way. Hopefully you can hear this sound in there. That's a very fundamental sound. That's the lowest part of this. So okay, where are we at now then? So this is our E flat major. It's just got the 3rd in the bass. It's still E flat major though. So I'll play up to where we're at so we can refresh our memory on the context. Feel as if we've, this to me kind of feels like home right now. We've done basically like a 5 to 1 in the relative major of C minor, so it's all really the same family, all related, nothing too crazy. What happens when we do this though? Which may be more familiar to you if you've seen, been playing guitar a bit, you might have seen, bar chords, stuff like this. That's basically what we've done. So this is E flat major, this is E flat major. Hopefully you can hear the relationship there. the same chord down 2 frets, down a whole tone. So if we relate it to this, it might make us understand what's happening a bit more. What's happened here? This note is not in our C minor / E flat major family. So we've borrowed something again from another related key. You could describe this in a number of ways, but because this is kind of just a brief passing thing, it's, if you were to say it simple, you could just say you've used the flat 7 rather than the natural 7 or the major 7 of E flat. So E flat major, and we've made it so we've got a flat 7 rather than the major 7. That's the fundamental difference, is we've just used this note instead of this one there. So it's a little different to maybe what we were expecting, because it's such a nice open sounding chord anyway. It's, of course, it's not, doesn't sound really dissonant at all or anything like that. And I don't feel as if this has changed tonal center here either. I just think we're briefly borrowing something that's not in the key for a moment. What have we got there then? Our next chord. So we've gone from a major chord in first inversion to another major chord in first inversion, down a tone, to, I think this is very beautiful sound. This is just a minor chord in first inversion. Notice this fingering is quite handy on the guitar, because if you play this, it's a major chord in first inversion, and if you play this, it's a minor chord in first inversion, because this is our third. And of course, the difference between a minor chord and a major chord is that the third is 1 fret different. You know, the major is here, flatten it, and it becomes minor. So what have we got? It's our old friend, the C minor. Hopefully you can hear this similarity here. It's just got a different note in the bass, but it's a note that's in the chord anyway. So we're kind of back in our diatonic framework here, if you like. We're not using any notes that aren't in the key of C minor. So we'll recap, go from the top, so we have some more context before we carry on. What's happened here then? What has happened here? So if we view these next two chords, obviously we'll view them together because it might make it a bit more sense. So we've got our C minor, which we just explained. This has got that same, notice this has that kind of same suspended sound. It's a little bit ambiguous. Notice really only the one difference between the C minor and this next chord, which we'll name in a moment. There's only one note difference, and that's this has gone here. I'm switching the fingering because I'm barring here, but theoretically, if I go like this, you'll see it's the same. It's just this one note is different. So this to me sounds like it could either be based on the notes we have here, I'm playing this, you can hear it's not quite perfectly in tune, because it's wobbling when I don't bend the string, when I bend it. So what we have is, could be D minor 7 with no fifth, which in the key of C minor, if you were trying to keep a diatonic, this would have a flat 5 anyway, but could also possibly be D7. Could be either, but we're just gonna, I think the impression I got from hearing it and trying to match the mood was something that sounded like this. This next chord, natural movement, the chords are the root notes of the chords are suggesting this, which is a very typical movement in fourths. This note being the same note, that the guitar tuned in fourths, apart from these strings. So when you see this, this is movement in fourths to G7. And as we said before, dominant 7 chords in nature is more about where they're heading than where they currently are, much of the time, not always, but this kind of, in our context, we're expecting this. Because 5 goes to 1. This is very typical movement in fourths. A 5 to 1 movement is a movement of a fourth up. The fourth up is the same as going down a fifth. But instead of having, as we would expect based on what our ears have been conditioned to prior, we had a C minor chord. We get a bit of a surprise here, which is that we've made C major. It gives it a kind of uplifting in, if you like. So that's going to go like. We're expecting this. Because this note is the one we had here a moment ago, this being an octave. So when we hear this, it's kind of a bit of a surprise, it's a bit uplifting. It's still heard as the tonic, it's still heard as 1, as home, but it's major, so now is how we're hearing things. I'll play the whole thing through once more and then conclude, I guess. So. So I think the things to spot here, if you're trying to kind of open up your ears and notice these things, a good question you can always ask yourself when you hear things is, if you have a chord progression, are they coming from the same family, or are the chords coming from different families? And if they're coming from different families, when does the point occur when they start coming from a different family? Are the two different families very similar, or are they completely different? is it heading to this new home, this new family to stay there? Is it just passing through? Is it just visiting? If you can just learn to hear when things are, when we hear this, when we hear that, all of those chords come from the same family, so hopefully we can hear that that didn't happen. But when something comes out, hopefully we can hear that this jumped out of the pack a little bit. So a good ability to spot if you're trying to open up your ears is just to ask yourself, well, is it coming from the same family or is it coming from a different family? And this, once you are able to spot this, is quite a nice thing to be able to feel these things and be sensitive enough to be able to be aware of them. But I thought this was a good this piece was a good study for this, because it has basically a key change to a related key, a borrowed chord that we briefly pass through, switch from minor to major at the end. There's a few kind of textbook little things in there which are quite nice examples of just nice harmonic motion, and it's given in a way which sounds, it shows that you can do harmonic things and they're still valid on any instrument. Obviously this is on a synthesizer, it's pretty cool sounding. So I guess if you have any questions, let us know in the comments, but thanks for watching.